The alien woman's hidden injury left everyone helpless, except one human doctor. Lieutenant Draven, the ship's human medical officer, leaned over the observation console, checking the latest readings from the outer sectors. His amber eyes scanned the readouts, calculating minute variances in life signs, atmospheric pressures, and radiation spikes. Yet, despite his attention to numbers, his thoughts were elsewhere, focused on the unusual call that had arrived from the diplomatic wing earlier that day. An alien woman had been brought aboard under emergency conditions. She belonged to the Zelari, a species whose physical forms were as alien as their culture was mysterious. Her body, lithe and sinewy, glimmered faintly with bioluminescent patterns that shifted with her emotions, a trait that fascinated and unnerved most humans. But it was her injury that had everyone on edge. Even experienced Zelari medics were unable to diagnose it fully. Draven, though, had a reputation for unconventional thinking. Where others hesitated, he often stepped forward. The ship's corridors were quiet as he walked toward the transport bay. The walls, polished to a sterile white sheen, reflected his slow stride. Crew members occasionally nodded as he passed, their expressions a mixture of respect and unease. Many had seen him handle critical injuries before, but this was different. The Zelari woman, known only as Leary, had suffered trauma in a part of her physiology that even her species considered sensitive, an injury hidden from view and not easily discussed. The transport bay door hissed open. Leary lay on the stretcher, her glowing patterns dimmed to a faint blue. Every movement she made was careful, restrained, as though a simple shift could worsen her condition. Her eyes, almond-shaped, shimmering with silver, were closed, but a thin line of pain creased her forehead. Around her, Zelari medics murmured to one another in a language Draven didn't understand, their hands hovering near tools they seemed hesitant to use. "Draven," one of them said, finally breaking the tense silence. "We cannot access the injury. It is delicate. Any improper touch could cause permanent damage." Draven nodded, observing her body carefully. "Show me exactly what you know," he said calmly. His voice carried a firmness that made even the Zelari pause. The lead medic stepped closer, placing a thin holographic projection over the affected area. It rotated in midair, displaying internal structures unfamiliar to human anatomy. The layers of muscle, nerve, and a strange filament-like network shimmered with alien colors. "We have tried non-invasive scans," the medic explained, "but we cannot determine the full extent of the damage. Only a direct approach, risky as it may be, might work." Draven studied the hologram for several minutes. His mind raced, forming connections between patterns of injury and possible interventions. Human medicine had its limits, but humans had one advantage: creativity born from necessity. "Sometimes you have to combine observation with intuition," he murmured. The Zelari medics exchanged uncertain glances. It was rare for a human to speak of intuition as a medical tool. Leary shifted slightly on the stretcher, a subtle motion that caused the projections to ripple. Draven crouched beside her, careful to make no sudden movement. "I need to ask you something," he said, his voice gentle, mindful that she understood the universality of tone rather than words. "Can you tell me where it hurts the most?" Her glowing patterns pulsed softly in response. The Zelari medics translated her gestures for him. She pointed to a specific internal region, a complex network of fibers and organs that were both fascinating and terrifying in their intricacy. It was clear that any attempt to intervene would require extreme precision, as well as a knowledge of both alien biology and surgical risk assessment. Draven took a deep breath. "I've handled difficult cases before, but I need everyone to step back. I work best with calm, quiet focus. You stay ready, but let me proceed." The room held its collective breath. Even among the crew, there was a moment of hesitation. Zelari physiology was notoriously difficult to treat for humans, and yet here was Draven, standing at the edge of the unknown, confident in his ability to act. He activated his medical interface, projecting multiple layers of imaging scans in midair. Each scan showed intricate details of Leary's internal structure: nerve bundles that seemed to pulse with energy, fluid channels that glowed faintly, and delicate organs arranged in patterns unlike anything in human anatomy. Draven studied the layers, mentally mapping each pathway. "Okay," he said softly, mostly to himself. "We can do this." Using a combination of nanoscopic surgical tools and his steady hands, Draven began his work. The Zelari medics watched silently, aware that the procedure was beyond their experience. Draven's approach was methodical. He did not rush. He allowed the tools to follow his gaze, using projected guidance and instinct in equal measure. Leary's glowing patterns responded to his touch. At first, there was a ripple of discomfort, a warning pulse of color that surged and ebbed. Draven adjusted immediately, modifying the angle of his instruments, fine-tuning pressure and monitoring her vitals. Each careful move revealed more of the injury, confirming what he had suspected. It was a combination of physical trauma and a subtle disruption in her internal energy pathways, a delicate imbalance that only an experienced touch could correct. Time stretched as he worked. Minutes felt like hours. Crew members shifted quietly, some offering assistance when asked, others simply holding the air of calm around him. The tension was palpable. One wrong move could lead to catastrophic consequences, not just for Leary, but for the trust between humans and Zelari medics. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Draven paused and studied his work. The alignment of internal fibers was restored, the disruption stabilized. He allowed himself a small breath of relief, though he remained vigilant, aware that the final steps were still delicate. "Almost done," he whispered. He used the nanoscopic tools to apply a precise biostabilizer, a synthetic compound designed to encourage natural healing while minimizing risk. Leary's glowing patterns began to normalize, shifting from anxious pulses of blue to calmer, gentle waves. The lead Zelari medic stepped forward. "Remarkable," they said in a quiet tone. "We did not believe such precision possible with a human." Draven smiled faintly. "Sometimes being human means adapting to the unexpected and learning to see what others cannot." As the procedure concluded, Leary slowly opened her eyes. They shone softly, a quiet acknowledgement of relief and trust. She did not speak, but her gaze met Draven's, a silent connection forming across species and experience. Later, in the quiet of the medbay, Draven cleaned his tools and reviewed the scans one last time. The injury had been complex, hidden, and potentially lethal if mismanaged. But now, with careful treatment, it was stable. The Zelari medics continued to observe, recording data and learning from the human approach. Outside the medbay, the Aurora's dawn continued its journey through the stars. Draven paused at the viewport, watching distant suns glimmer across the void. For all the technology and alien knowledge aboard the ship, it was often human creativity and perseverance that made the difference. Today had been proof. In the quiet corners of the ship, whispers of Draven's success began to circulate. Crew members spoke of the human doctor, who had faced an unknown injury with calm, precision, and courage. And somewhere, deep within the complex biology of a recovering alien woman, there was gratitude, and perhaps the beginning of understanding between two very different species. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the reinforced glass. And as the ship sailed onward, one truth remained clear. In the vastness of space, humanity's strength was not just in technology or numbers, but in the willingness to step forward when others could not, and to trust that intelligence, compassion, and courage could bridge even the widest of divides. Days passed aboard the Aurora's dawn, yet the medbay remained unusually quiet, not in the emptiness of neglect, but in the concentrated hum of careful observation. Leary, the alien woman with the hidden injury, lay resting on a reinforced biobed, her bioluminescent patterns shifting in soft, almost playful ripples. The change was subtle, but to Draven it was unmistakable. She was healing and her energy was returning. Still, her condition required constant monitoring. The injury had not only affected her physical form, but had also disturbed the delicate energy balance that all Zelari carried within them. A small misalignment could have ripple effects on her metabolism, mood, and even cognitive clarity. Draven knew that the true test was not the repair itself, but the recovery, the delicate process of watching her regain strength while ensuring no further complication arose. He entered the medbay, his white coat brushing softly against the polished floor. The soft hum of equipment blended with the faint pulse of Leary's bioluminescence. She opened one eye as he approached, her silver gaze focused and inquisitive. There was trust in her look, though not yet full understanding. "How are you feeling?" he asked, speaking slowly, aware that words themselves might not carry full meaning but that tone and clarity mattered more than vocabulary. Leary responded with a subtle gesture, touching the center of her chest, a signal of endurance or recognition. Draven was not certain. The Zelari medics, hovering at a respectful distance, translated her gestures into their language. "She indicates she feels lighter, more stable than before," the lead medic said, their voice carrying cautious optimism. Draven nodded. "Good, that's what I want to hear, but healing is a process. We have to be patient." The next several hours were spent in observation. Draven reviewed scans, cross-referenced alien anatomy references, and even consulted holographic archives of Zelari physiology. He made notes on subtle shifts in energy flow, internal pressure points, and unusual reactions in her bioluminescent patterns. Every detail mattered. Suddenly, the biobed sensors registered a minor fluctuation, a spike in energy in one of her internal filaments. Draven's eyes narrowed. "Show me the readings in real time," he instructed. The holographic projection shimmered into life, displaying Leary's internal systems with fluid lines of glowing color. The lead Zelari medic leaned closer, murmuring softly, "This is unexpected. The fluctuation appears localized, but it is unusual for someone in recovery." Draven studied the readings, noting the pattern. "It's not dangerous yet," he said, his tone calm, though internally his mind raced. "But it indicates a secondary imbalance. Something was triggered during the repair, or perhaps it was always there and just masked by the main injury." Leary shifted slightly, her glowing patterns rippling in response. The motion was careful but deliberate, and Draven noticed a subtle tension in her muscles. He stepped closer, gently placing a hand near her shoulder, not touching, just close enough to sense her energy. "I need you to remain calm," he said softly, sensing her apprehension. "This might be uncomfortable, but I will not harm you." A ripple of color responded, brighter and more urgent than before. It was a communication of emotion more than anything else, a mix of anxiety and curiosity. Draven understood immediately that trust was still being built. "Let's try something," he murmured to the medics. A controlled stimulus to guide the energy alignment. Carefully, step by step. The medics watched, some with hesitation, as Draven initiated a sequence of guided bioenergetic pulses through the medbay's stabilizing field. The pulses were gentle, precise, designed to interact with the bioluminescent filaments without causing stress. Leary's glowing patterns flared briefly, then settled into smoother, more synchronized waves. "She responds well," the lead medic said. "The alignment is improving." Draven allowed himself a brief nod of satisfaction but remained vigilant. "It is delicate. Any abrupt change could set back recovery by days or weeks." Hours passed in this careful rhythm of observation, gentle stimulation, and patient monitoring. Draven made small adjustments, noting how each intervention altered the subtle energies within her body. Leary's responses became clearer. Her patterns pulsed with recognition, anticipation, and occasionally subtle joy. It was a slow but profound communication, bridging species without words. As evening approached, the ship passed through a sector of high cosmic radiation. The outer sensors registered minor fluxes that would not threaten the ship's shields, but could interact with biological systems. Draven considered the effect on Leary, knowing that such cosmic energy could influence the delicate balance of her recovery. He adjusted the medbay's energy shielding, layering protective harmonics designed to buffer any external interference. Despite these precautions, Leary stirred, her body reacting to the shift in energy. The room's temperature, light, and electromagnetic balance all had subtle effects on her comfort and healing. Draven moved to stabilize the environment, a series of adjustments that required both technology and instinct. She is sensitive to environmental changes, the lead medic observed. We had not accounted for such reactions in prior studies. Draven nodded. It's not sensitivity alone, it's integration. Her systems are responding to both internal and external factors. We have to consider the whole: mind, body, energy, and surroundings. The rest of the crew noticed the unusual activity in the medbay. Engineers peeked from the corridors, curious about the human doctor working quietly with alien medics, performing tasks that blended science, observation, and intuition. It was a demonstration of human adaptability, something many species had underestimated. By nightfall, Leary's condition stabilized further. Draven monitored her vitals one last time before allowing the medics to take over the observation shift. Her energy flows were smooth, her vitals steady, and her bioluminescent patterns reflected a rare tranquility. Alone in the quiet medbay, Draven allowed himself a moment to reflect. He had always believed that being human meant more than muscle and machine. It meant curiosity, courage, and empathy. Today had tested every one of those qualities. He thought about the Zelari woman, fragile yet resilient, trusting yet cautious. Healing was not just a matter of fixing injury. It was a matter of understanding, patience, and respect for differences. A gentle alarm broke the silence, a minor alert from the ship systems. Draven moved to the console, reviewing the external readouts. The Aurora's dawn was approaching a dense nebula, a cluster of ionized particles that could interfere with communications and sensors. Normally, this would be an engineering concern, but Draven knew it could affect Leary as well. He activated a temporary field around the medbay to shield against any electromagnetic fluctuations. The subtle energy within her body was sensitive to such interference, and he could not risk disruption. It was a delicate balance, but one humans excelled at when necessity demanded it. Hours later, Leary awoke fully, her glowing patterns bright, reflecting a mix of curiosity and awareness. Draven observed her quietly, noting the subtle changes in her posture and energy. She was exploring her limits, moving carefully, learning what her body could do now. "Good," he said softly, keeping his tone neutral but encouraging. "You are stronger than before. Keep calm, keep steady. Every step counts." The lead Zelari medic nodded, impressed. The human doctor's methods are unorthodox, but effective. We have learned more in these days than in decades of study. Draven smiled faintly, acknowledging the compliment but keeping his focus. Healing was a continuous process. Every day brought new challenges, especially with a species so different from his own. He knew the path was long, but the progress made thus far was promising. Late in the ship's night cycle, as the crew slept and the medbay hummed softly, Draven reflected on a simple truth. Sometimes, being human meant stepping into the unknown with nothing but courage and understanding. And sometimes, that alone could make the impossible possible. Leary rested peacefully now, her patterns rhythmic and calm, signaling that she had accepted not only the treatment but the care, trust, and patience of a human doctor. It was more than a victory over injury. It was the beginning of mutual understanding, the foundation for cooperation across species. The stars continued their silent drift outside the viewport, endless and indifferent, yet the human presence aboard the Aurora's dawn left a mark. One doctor, guided by ingenuity and empathy, had bridged the gap between two species, proving that sometimes the greatest strength in the universe was not in weapons or shields, but in the willingness to care and the courage to act. As the ship sailed further into the uncharted regions, Draven prepared for the next stage of Leary's recovery. There would be challenges, subtle, invisible, and complex, but he felt ready. For the first time, he truly believed that human adaptability, patience, and intuition could achieve what others deemed impossible. And somewhere, deep within her calm awareness, Leary recognized it too, the unusual strength and determination of a species willing to step forward when all else faltered. The Aurora's dawn drifted quietly through the expanse of a neutral star cluster, its hull glinting faintly. Under the starlight, Draven had spent the morning reviewing Leary's recovery logs, carefully analyzing each subtle change in her internal energy and vitals. Progress had been steady, almost reassuring, but he knew better than to grow complacent. Recovery, especially for a species as complex as the Zelari, was rarely linear. Leary lay in the medbay, her silver and blue bioluminescent patterns flickering softly like distant stars. Her movements were more confident than the previous day, yet there was a cautious deliberation in each shift of her limbs. She had begun testing her limits, and Draven watched closely, mindful that even the smallest misstep could trigger a setback. The lead Zelari medic hovered nearby, their expression betraying a mixture of curiosity and respect. "Your methods continue to astonish," they said. "Even now, she responds in ways our standard protocols would never achieve." Draven allowed a small nod. "Observing is just as important as acting. Understanding how she adapts and responds tells me more than any standard treatment could." For hours, the medbay remained a place of quiet focus. Draven monitored Leary's vitals and subtle energy patterns, making minute adjustments to the environmental harmonics. Every pulse, every shift in her bioluminescent glow was a language in itself, a silent dialogue between healer and patient. But just as Draven began to feel a cautious optimism, a sudden alert flared across the medbay's console. The sensors detected a minor anomaly in Leary's internal energy flow, a spike localized to a section of her nervous network. It was small, but unexpected. Draven's eyes narrowed. "Show me the real-time projection," he instructed. The holographic display shimmered into life, revealing the intricate filaments and pathways of Leary's biology. The spike pulsed irregularly, a subtle distortion in an otherwise smooth pattern. The lead Zelari medic leaned closer. "It is not dangerous yet," they said, but their tone carried tension. "But it is unusual, especially after recent stabilization." Draven studied the projections carefully. "It's likely a delayed reaction," he murmured. "Some internal alignment may have been disrupted during the initial repair. We need to address it before it escalates." Leary, sensing the shift in attention, tensed slightly. Her glowing patterns flickered in an anxious rhythm. Draven approached calmly, raising his hands in a gesture of reassurance. "I need you to trust me," he said softly. "We will handle this together." With careful precision, Draven initiated a series of guided energy adjustments using the medbay's stabilizing field. The pulses were gentle, designed to interact with her bioluminescent filaments without causing strain. Leary's patterns flared briefly, a response that Draven interpreted as discomfort mixed with recognition. Minutes passed as he guided the energy through her system, monitoring every response. The irregular spike persisted, but began to diminish under the steady influence of the controlled pulses. The Zelari medics watched silently, clearly impressed by the human doctor's ability to manage the complex system without causing additional stress. Her response is remarkable, one of them said finally. You are not just treating her body, you are synchronizing with her energy. Draven gave a faint nod. That's exactly what healing requires sometimes, more than tools or drugs. It's understanding the subtle language of the body and mind, especially when the body itself is unlike anything you've seen before. Just as he adjusted the final pulse, the medbay's ambient lighting flickered. A minor power surge traveled through the ship systems, nothing dangerous, but enough to ripple through sensitive equipment. Leary's bioluminescent patterns surged in response, brighter and more erratic than before. Draven reacted instantly, stabilizing the medbay's energy shields and rerouting power to ensure no disruption to her delicate internal balance. Leary's breathing became shallow, her chest rising and falling in quick, tense rhythms. Draven moved closer, placing a steadying hand near her shoulder, not touching, just offering presence and reassurance. Easy, steady, I've got you, he whispered. The Zelari medics exchanged worried glances. We did not anticipate such sensitivity to minor ship fluctuations, one said. Draven adjusted the energy flow again, carefully calibrating the pulses to guide her internal system back into balance. Slowly, Leary's patterns began to normalize, returning to gentle, rhythmic pulses. Her breathing steadied and the spike in her nervous network subsided. He allowed himself a small exhale. There, steady now, you're safe. Leary's eyes opened, shimmering with silver, and she focused on Draven. There was a silent acknowledgement there, a recognition that transcended language. Her energy patterns flickered in soft, harmonious waves, a sign of trust and relief. The human doctor leaned back slightly, taking a moment to review the projections once more. The anomaly had been addressed, but it served as a stark reminder that recovery was not merely physical. It was a complex interplay of energy, environment, and adaptation. The rest of the day passed in careful monitoring. Draven adjusted the medbay's environmental settings to optimize her comfort and stability, ensuring that temperature, light, and electromagnetic harmonics remained ideal. He recorded every response, every subtle shift in energy, creating a detailed record that would serve both as a guide for her ongoing recovery and as a reference for the Zelari medics. By evening, Leary was moving more freely, testing her strength with small, deliberate motions. Her glowing patterns reflected cautious confidence, a visual representation of her internal equilibrium. The lead Zelari medic observed quietly, occasionally making notes. Her resilience is impressive, they said. The human doctor's methods are unconventional, yet effective beyond our expectations. Draven allowed himself a faint smile. Sometimes, being human means adapting, observing, and understanding what others might overlook. Healing is as much about patience as it is about knowledge. Night fell aboard the Aurora's dawn, and the medbay settled into a quiet rhythm. Draven remained vigilant, reviewing scans and ensuring that no lingering irregularities persisted. He thought about the unexpected spike, about the delicate balance of energy and physiology, and about the trust forming between himself and Leary. A soft alarm interrupted his thoughts. This time, it came from the ship's navigation systems, a minor warning indicating a cluster of charged particles ahead. Not immediately dangerous, but capable of affecting sensitive life signs. Draven's mind raced. External energy fluctuations could interfere with Leary's delicate recovery, and he needed to act quickly. He activated protective shielding around the medbay, adjusting energy flows to counteract the external interference. Leary responded almost immediately, her glowing patterns flaring brightly, signaling both recognition and slight anxiety. Draven spoke softly, maintaining a calm presence. "It's all right, I've got it. You're safe." The field stabilized, and slowly, Leary's patterns returned to gentle waves. Her breathing became steady, and her energy returned to the harmonious rhythm that Draven had worked so hard to maintain. The Zelari medics watched, quietly amazed. Your ability to adapt and respond in real time, it surpasses anything we have observed, the lead medic said. Draven shook his head slightly. It's not just about reaction, it's about understanding the whole system, body, energy, and environment. You have to see the connections others might miss. As the ship continued its silent journey through the stars, Draven and Leary developed a subtle, unspoken rhythm. Each gesture, each flicker of bioluminescence communicated progress, comfort, or concern. The trust between them grew, a bridge spanning the vast differences of their species. Late in the night cycle, Draven reviewed her vitals one final time. The spike had been resolved, the nervous network stabilized, and her overall energy balance was stronger than it had been in days. Yet he knew the recovery was ongoing. Each day brought new variables, new challenges, and opportunities to learn from one another. For Leary, trust had been earned. For Draven, understanding had deepened. Together, they had navigated an unfamiliar path, proving that patience, observation, and courage could overcome even the most complex of challenges. Outside the medbay, stars drifted endlessly, silent witnesses to the quiet triumph unfolding within the ship. The universe was vast, indifferent, and often unforgiving. But here, in this small chamber aboard the Aurora's Dawn, a human had made a difference. It was a reminder that in the expanse of space, the greatest strength was not always in technology, in weapons, or in speed. Sometimes it was in a willingness to step forward, to understand, and to act with empathy, intelligence, and courage. Leary's energy patterns pulsed softly, a visual echo of resilience and trust. Draven observed them with quiet satisfaction, knowing that each successful adjustment, each carefully guided pulse, had brought her one step closer to full recovery. And somewhere within that delicate balance, across species and experiences, a lesson had been written in light and energy. Humans were capable of remarkable feats, not because of inherent superiority, but because of the determination to face the unknown, to adapt, and to care when others could not. The Aurora's Dawn glided silently through the inky darkness of a remote nebula, where faint stars glimmered behind dense clouds of gas and dust. The ship's hull shimmered softly as ionized particles brushed against the shields. Draven stood in the medbay, reviewing Leary's latest readings. Her recovery had progressed steadily, but he knew the universe rarely allowed rest without challenge. Today was different. As he analyzed the sensors, a subtle anomaly appeared in Leary's internal energy readings. It was minor but persistent, a tiny, irregular pulse that threatened to destabilize her delicate equilibrium. Draven furrowed his brow. After days of careful monitoring, he understood her system better than anyone. Even a small fluctuation could become serious if ignored. Leary rested on the biobed, her bioluminescent patterns a soft, steady glow. She had begun to move with more confidence, exploring the range of her body cautiously. Her gestures toward Draven indicated awareness and trust, but the tiny spike in her internal network was a silent warning. "Show me the projection in full detail," Draven instructed. The holographic display shimmered above her, rotating slowly, displaying her intricate internal filaments and organ structures. The irregular pulse was visible now, a faint red flicker among the calming blues and silvers of her normal energy flow. The lead Zelari medic leaned close. "We did not expect any complications at this stage," they murmured. "Her recovery was remarkable." Draven shook his head slightly. "Recovery is not just repair, it's adaptation, balance, and patience. This anomaly is subtle, but it could lead to stress in her nervous system if we do not act carefully." Leary's patterns shifted suddenly, her glow brightening as though she sensed the tension. Draven approached her gently. "It's okay, I will help you. "Stay calm," he whispered. She responded with a slow, calming ripple of light, acknowledging his presence and intent. Draven activated the medbay's energy stabilizers and prepared a sequence of guided pulses designed to synchronize her internal system. He had been planning this for days, an intricate adjustment requiring precision, understanding, and intuition. His hands hovered over the interface as he calibrated the pulse frequencies. As the sequence began, Leary's patterns brightened sharply, responding to the stimuli with both discomfort and recognition. The irregular pulse reacted, fluctuating in intensity as Draven guided the harmonics carefully. The Zelari medics watched silently, aware that this procedure went beyond their protocols and required a rare human ability, improvisation under pressure. Hours passed in tense focus. Each adjustment was minute but vital. Draven monitored every microsecond of response, using both instruments and intuition to maintain control. Leary's patterns surged, pulsed, and rippled, reflecting her body's attempt to integrate the new alignment. Draven spoke softly to her, words unnecessary but his calm tone acting as reassurance. "Steady, breathe, I am here." Suddenly, a stronger fluctuation rippled through her system, more intense than any previous spike. The medbay sensors flared, warning of potential instability. Draven's eyes sharpened. He realized that the anomaly was not a flaw but a reaction to the cumulative recovery process, her body attempting to integrate previous corrections with the current adjustment. It was delicate, dangerous, and required immediate action. He adjusted the pulses, decreasing amplitude but increasing frequency, a subtle change designed to ease the tension rather than force it. Leary's patterns responded, flaring brightly, then slowly settling into smoother waves. Her breathing deepened and a calm rhythm returned to her nervous system. The lead Zelari medic exhaled, relief evident. "She is stabilizing. The human, your methods are extraordinary," they said quietly. Draven did not respond. His focus remained on Leary. Recovery was not complete until her internal system fully integrated the adjustments, and he would not relax until the final confirmation appeared. Minutes later, the anomaly finally smoothed out. Leary's bioluminescence pulsed evenly, bright but calm, her internal energy fully synchronized. Draven allowed himself a small, controlled exhale. It was done. She was stable. Leary opened her eyes, their silver light shimmering with recognition and trust. She raised a slender hand slowly, a gesture of acknowledgement. Draven mirrored the motion and the two shared a quiet understanding. The human had guided her through pain, uncertainty, and the unknown. "Remarkable," the Zelari medic said again. "We have learned more in this short time than decades of observation could provide." Draven nodded, feeling a rare sense of satisfaction. "Learning is mutual," he said softly. "She has adapted as much as we have guided." Leary's patterns brightened further, a visual reflection of strength and vitality. She moved carefully, exploring her regained abilities with slow, deliberate motions. Draven observed, making subtle notes and adjustments, ensuring that each movement was safe. As the ship passed deeper into the nebula, minor electromagnetic fluctuations brushed against the shields. Normally, such events were negligible, but for Leary, sensitive to energy shifts, they could cause stress. Draven adjusted the medbase field, harmonizing it with her energy frequency. She responded immediately, her glow stabilizing. Once again, the human ability to observe, adapt, and act made a tangible difference. By the evening cycle, Leary had regained full mobility. She moved freely across the biobed, her gestures communicating curiosity, awareness, and confidence. Draven smiled faintly. Healing was not just about repair. It was about restoring freedom, independence, and self-trust. Outside the medbay, the crew had begun to notice the changes. Whispers circulated among the bridge and corridors about the human doctor who had not only repaired a complex alien injury, but had guided the patient through recovery with empathy, patience, and remarkable ingenuity. Humans, often underestimated by other species, were proving that courage, observation, and understanding were their most valuable assets. Late into the night, Draven reviewed all the data once more. Leary's energy patterns, vitals, and nervous system were now stable and integrated. The anomaly that had threatened disruption was gone. Her recovery, once precarious, was now secure. He allowed himself a moment to rest, leaning against the console and watching the soft glow of her patterns ripple in calm waves. Leary turned toward him, moving with a grace that seemed effortless. Her bioluminescence pulsed gently, and in that subtle light, Draven could see the trust she had placed in him. A bond formed not through language, but through action, patience, and understanding. The Zelari medics remained in respectful silence, recording the process, learning from the human doctor's techniques. It was an unusual sight, a human guiding recovery for a species far beyond his own in complexity, proving that empathy, ingenuity, and courage were as vital as knowledge. As the ship sailed onward, Draven allowed himself to reflect. Healing Leary had been more than a medical procedure. It had been an exercise in understanding, patience, and cross-species communication. He had faced the unknown, adapted to challenges, and found solutions where others might have hesitated. Leary's bioluminescence flickered softly in the dim medbay light. She moved closer, her gestures deliberate. Draven met her movements with mirrored gestures, a silent dialogue of acknowledgement. In that exchange, both species learned something invaluable. That strength was not measured in dominance, size, or technology, but in the courage to act, the patience to understand, and the empathy to care. The nebula drifted past, stars shining faintly through thick clouds of gas. Outside the reinforced viewport, the universe remained vast, indifferent, and mysterious. Yet inside the aurora's dawn, humanity's presence had made a tangible difference. A single human had bridged the divide between species, faced the unknown with ingenuity, and proven that sometimes compassion and creativity were the strongest tools of all. Draven finally stepped back, allowing Leary to explore the medbay freely. She moved with confidence, testing the limits of her recovery, her energy steady and harmonious. The bond formed between them was clear, a silent understanding born of shared effort and trust. The Zelari medics watched and learned, inspired by the human's ability to navigate complexity and uncertainty with calm precision. The lessons of this recovery would resonate far beyond the aurora's dawn, shaping how their species understood healing, cooperation, and the value of humans in situations others might deem impossible. As the ship continued its journey through the stars, Draven allowed himself a quiet moment of satisfaction. Leary was safe, her recovery complete, and the lessons of patience, observation, and courage had been proven once more. Humanity, he realized, was capable of remarkable things, not through force or technology alone, but through the determination to step forward when others could not, to understand the unknown, and to act with care and intelligence. Leary's glow dimmed slightly as she rested, a calm pulse signaling trust and awareness. Draven watched, knowing that their journey together, though no longer medical in necessity, had created a bridge between worlds. In the endless void of space, small acts of courage and understanding could ripple across species and systems, leaving a lasting mark that technology alone could never achieve. Outside, the nebula shifted and flowed, stars twinkling faintly through the clouds. Within the ship, a human and an alien shared a quiet moment of harmony, a testament to ingenuity, empathy, and the boundless potential of humanity. And as the aurora's dawn continued onward, through dark voids and glittering starlight, one truth remained undeniable. Even in the vastness of space, the strength of a single human heart and mind could make the impossible possible. The alien woman's hidden injury left everyone helpless, except one human doctor.